Well, hello. Welcome back to Walking the Talk, the sermon podcast of Creekside Community Church in San Leandro, California, where we help you to walk out what we talked about on Sunday. My name is Jeff Bruce, joined by John Bruce and Max Butler. We're all pastors here. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Great. Great day.
Dad, why the enthusiasm?
Sun is out.
Yep.
It's a beautiful day.
I'll second that emotion.
Not a secondhand emotion, but you'll second that emotion.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. You know, I discovered a hidden gem in my backyard. So my brother-in-law got a Traeger to smoke meat like 15 years ago. And then he said, hey, can you store this for me? And I said, sure. And I didn't use it because I thought it's his. And so 15 years go by and he never picked it up. And then when Tim and Jenny moved to Arizona, I'm like, hey, do you want your Traeger? He's like, nah, I'm good. And so then I finally felt the permission to use it, but I never thought about how to use it because I was just storing it. So lo and behold, my brother-in-law, other one, Carrick, comes in from Texas, who smokes stuff all the time. So he's just been smoking meat for us all weekend.
Wow.
So, oh man, what was I thinking not using the Traeger this whole time?
Those many years of smoked meat, you've probably restored those years in your life in terms of how much beef you would have eaten.
What have I been depriving myself of all this time? So, well, we have a very familiar text today. 1 Samuel 17, we're looking at David and Goliath. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and they were gathered at Soka, which belongs to Judah, and encamped between Soka and Ezekah in Ephes Dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and camped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in the line of battle against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. And he had bronze armor on his legs, and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. And his shield-bearer went before him. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah named Jesse, who had 8 sons. In the days of Saul, the man was already old and advanced in years. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had followed Saul to the battle, and the names of his 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 eldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistine came forward and took his stand morning and evening. And Jesse said to David his son, take your brothers an ephah of this parched grain and these 10 loaves, and carry them quickly to the camp of your brothers. Also take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their 1,000. See if your brothers are well, and bring some token from them. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper and took the provisions and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the encampment as the host was going out to the battle line, shouting the war cry. And Israel and the Philistines drew up for battle, army against army. And David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage and ran to the ranks and went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, behold, the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, came up out of the ranks of the Philistines and spoke the same words as before. And David heard him. All the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were much afraid. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches, and will give him his father's daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David said to the men who stood by him, what shall be done for the man who kills the Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him in the same way, so shall it be done to the man who kills him. Now Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, why have you come down? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." And David said, "What have I done now? Was it not but a word?" And he turned away from him toward another and spoke in the same way, and the people answered him again as before. When the words that David spoke were heard, they repeated them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he rose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God." And David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Then Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a helmet of bronze on his head and clothed him with a coat of mail, and David strapped his sword over his armor. And he tried in vain to go, for he had not tested them. Then David said to Saul, "I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them." So David put them off. Then he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. And the Philistine moved forward and came near to David, with his shield-bearer in front of him. And when the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance. And the Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, "Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the field." Then David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand." When the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, David ran quickly to the battle line to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. There was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine and took his sword and drew it out of its sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and Judah rose with a shout and pursued the Philistines as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron, so that the wounded Philistines fell on the way from Sha'araim as far as Gath and Ekron. And the people of Israel came back from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their camp. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. As soon as Saul saw David go out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, "Abner, whose son is this youth?" And Abner said, "As your soul lives, O king, I do not know." And the king said, "Inquire whose son the boy is." And as soon as David returned from striking down of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, "Whose son are you, young man?" And David answered, "I am the son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite." Well, of familiar stories in the Bible, this might be at the very top.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one.
Yeah. So how should we frame this in the book of 1 Samuel? Because it's such a compelling story that it stands on its own in many ways. And as Kyle pointed out, this idea of David and Goliath has kind of taken on a life of its own in the popular imagination. And partially because we love underdogs in our culture. And this feels like the ultimate underdog story. But as Kyle was saying, it's not the point at all.
No. I don't think the point here is that you should be more like David. And I think it's that David is a picture of Christ, who defeats the enemies we can't defeat.
Yeah.
But we can get to that later once we make our way through the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, a detail that stood out to me this time was kind of his brother's reaction, because it stood out because the thing that David is described as, or the way that he's described, is that he's a man after God's own heart. And the author of Samuel is giving us insight into David's heart. And here is his brother saying, I know the presumption and the evil of your heart.
Right.
So here is like a brother making an evil, ascribing like evil intentions to David. And
Right.
and I think that's kind of interesting. We can often, I don't know, just how he missed that, and how the author kind of corrects that. And
Yeah, because at this point in the story, Samuel misreads what's happening with David initially. Or I guess there's a sense that he judges by the wrong appearances,
Yeah.
right? And that's what God corrects in chapter 16. Jesse certainly does. He doesn't even ask David to come to the feast where David would be anointed. And now David's brothers misread him as well.
Yeah.
And so you have this theme that keeps repeating of man judges by outward appearances and God judges by the heart.
And that he's also called to be the shepherd. Like he's not even allowed to go to the other guys go to the battle, but Jeff, he's like not deemed battle worthy or anything.
Exactly. It's the upside down kingdom again, where it's the person that everyone is discounted is the one God uses. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the evidence that David has was evidence only he could know. Nobody else knew he was killing bears and lions
Out
on
in
his
the
own.
woods. Yeah.
Because he didn't broadcast it apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. The minute he says, I gripped a lion by the beard and killed it, it's like, oh, maybe you have a little experience fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what strikes me, though, about David is he is the only person in this story with a God-centered perspective.
Yeah.
Goliath says, I defy the armies of Israel. I curse you by the gods. David's the only one who says he's defying God.
Yeah.
And that this is an issue of God's authority, God's reputation, God's dominion, and that's the issue here. And God will not allow his name to be mocked by his enemies.
Yeah.
And that's David's confidence.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to Jonathan's confidence when he took the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, for the Lord can save by many or by few.
Yeah.
And David has that exact same perspective, which also explains why David and Jonathan were so close.
Yeah.
Yeah, and both of them, it's interesting to me that David, and this probably could be said of Jonathan too, he doesn't pray about this. He doesn't say, oh God, what should I do here?
Yeah.
Like that. He just says, this guy's defying God. God will be with me. I got to do something.
Yeah.
And he just jumps right in. And Jonathan does something similar, though not to that extent. But they both take action.
Yes.
By faith, because they have faith in God.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, while everybody else is cowering because they have a man-centered perspective, because David has a God-centered perspective, he takes action.
Yeah. Yeah, and the parallels between Jonathan's and David's situation are instructive as well, because you have this valley, right? And it seems like, and Kyle pointed this out, the reason no one's attacking anyone is because someone's got to attack uphill.
Yeah.
And they both have the high ground now, and no one wants to give up the high ground. And so everyone's just paralyzed and stalemated. And obviously Israel's terrified of Goliath, but you think about Jonathan attacking this outpost in chapter 14. He doesn't have he gives up the element of surprise. He goes uphill. It's all based on his confidence in God, not on human strategies.
Right.
And saying that, well, God has promised to fight for his people. We don't have a choice but to fight here. We're either going to get conquered or we're going to fight. So someone has to fight, and God will be good to his promises if we obey.
Yeah. I think there's a real application for us too, just in the spiritual battle, that God fights when we fight.
Yes.
That we have to fight before we see God's power. It's Romans 8.
Mm-hmm.
If you by the Spirit are putting to death the deeds of the body, you will live.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to put to death the deeds, the sin in our flesh. But God will give us the strength to do it if we'll fight. If we don't fight, he doesn't.
Yep.
And I just love the faith of David just saying, well, of course God's going to fight here. I just need to get involved.
And yet, as you pointed out earlier, David is a singularity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Jonathan is like David, but the point here is that no one is like David
Right.
in this story.
Right.
Not that all Israel was like, oh, we should have followed David's example and done this. It's, wow, we have a champion that we did not expect, who won a victory with means that we did not expect.
Yeah.
And God used this improbable circumstance to bring about victory.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it struck me too that David says, I'm going to give the bodies of the dead Philistines. I mean, he's not expecting this deal that Goliath declared, if I lose, we'll be on your service. That's not going to happen.
No.
We're not going to settle for peaceful coexistence with the Philistines here.
Right.
And the Philistines obviously didn't believe that either, because when Goliath falls, they run.
Right.
They know there's a battle coming.
Yep.
So.
No, that's good. I think another interesting point in peeling back the narrative of Scripture is how this battle is an echo of the great battle, the war of the serpent and the seed of the woman.
Yeah.
And you really see that David is the seed of the woman, the chosen king. He's God's choice.
Mm-hmm.
Goliath, his appearance is interesting. He wears all of this bronze, right? So what does he look like? Well, it's kind of like a serpent. And in verse 5, literally, it's Goliath wore a coat of bronze scale armor, is what's translated as mails. And so it's not just like what we think of as medieval chainmail or something like that. So it's some sort of scale pattern. It's bronze. So, there's, to me, this little wink, wink, nod, nod, that this is sort of a serpent figure here, a seed of the serpent who's come to defy God's armies. And he certainly fits that description.
Yeah.
But again, he tries to crush the heel of the seed of the woman, and of course the seed of the woman crushes his head.
Right.
In a way that's completely improbable. And I think it's important to see this narrative in that salvation historical framework, because then we can rightly situate ourselves in the story. And this is one thing that David talked about, is our job is not to go out and slay Goliath, because we can't slay Goliath. That's the point, right? That he's too big, he's too intimidating, but Jesus wins the victory we can't. And so where are we in this story? Well, we are the frightened soldiers who have now been emboldened by sharing in a victory that's purely grace by ours. And so now we're on the pursuit.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, because so often the story is applied as, what's the Goliath in your life?
Yeah.
As if there's some giant that you have to face down. And the whole point is that Jesus defeated the great enemy.
Yeah.
So that we can fight from his victory.
Right. Right. Oh, that's good.
And yet David's exemplary.
Yeah.
So
he is. Well, I think that one thing that strikes me is that Saul tries to give David his armor.
Yeah.
And even though David is confident that God is going to fight for him, he also has to fight. So he's not going to take any new armor, new weapons, things that he's never used before. He's going to go back to how he's always fought.
Right.
And I think there's a good lesson there, that when you're fighting in God's power, you don't have to be somebody different.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it in a brand new way. You just go with the tried and true, what you can do, and let God take care of it.
Right. Yeah. And do you think there's a parallel here too in our spiritual battle, that we have to understand the weapons that God has actually given us that are best suited to us?
Right.
I think of 2 Corinthians 10, which you talked about at our last men's breakfast, that the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh,
right,
but have divine power to destroy strongholds. And so I think it's understanding what weaponry has God given us.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so using the 2 Corinthians 10, it's battling your thoughts.
Yeah.
And realize that's where the war is really fought, is in our heads, between truth and error.
Yeah.
And my part in the spiritual battle is to replace lies with truth.
Yeah.
And then to practice that. That's all I have to do. God does the rest.
Mm-hmm.
One other principle I see, though, back again, not to say that we're going to slay the giant,
right,
but it is the leadership principle of reacting the way that David does to what God has put on his heart,
Yes.
in God's favor. And then just the very catalytic kind of
Yes.
action of taking action has a great effect on your community. I know that I've seen when people do that, it is easy to rally behind. It's like you're going to create momentum when you actually stand on a conviction and you in your community and you take action, even if it's just to kind of solidify that, like if you're a father, it's like my dad's not passive, he's doing something.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just think, and he's acting out of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the contagion of courage
Yeah.
that when you see someone acting courageously, you are emboldened
Yeah.
to follow their example.
Yeah.
And faith requires courage.
Yeah.
Yeah, David runs into the battle. Yeah. I mean, that's the amazing thing. He's running toward this giant, which, it's just the opposite of what most people would do. Would kind of hang back and I'll look for an opening here.
Yeah.
But he's pretty enthusiastic.
Yeah. I remember the example you've often given in talks, Dad, where you were playing a rugby game at altitude in Colorado and everyone's just exhausted.
Yeah.
Just kind of, mustering up the will to actually play the game. And then was it Richie Blue?
Yeah.
Who just had a massive hit to start the game?
Yeah. Yeah, he just picked a guy up. I mean, Rich wasn't that tall. He was very wide.
Yeah.
But no, he just picked the guy up off the ground completely and just slammed him down. And it filled our whole team with such enthusiasm.
Yep.
All of a sudden, we forgot about the heat, forgot about the altitude, and we won the game.
Yep.
And I think it was because of his leadership there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a good lesson there in discipleship as well, that you can teach and instruct, until you're blue in the face on things. But when you act courageously
Yeah.
in a way that costs you something,
Yeah.
that's what, as you were saying, Max, catalyzes other people to go, oh, wait, this is what the normal Christian life, quote unquote, looks like. This guy is taking a risk. I should do that too. And I can just think of so many examples where I look at my friend's behavior and go, oh, wait, that's what a Christian does. Okay, now I'm going to do it. And I just think that's so powerful.
I agree, especially in we intellectualize so
Everything.
much and just think, well, I've just got to, but it's the actual practice that impacts us and impacts other people when they see it happen. And that's what drives me crazy about all the applications I left in my notebook. I should do this, I should do this, but I never did them.
Yeah.
So they didn't do me any good or anybody else any good.
Well, I think that's why you need the power of example
Yeah.
in discipleship.
Yeah.
Because at some level, if you're just downloading content from the Bible, and of course the word changes us, the word is powerful, but when you see the word embodied in someone else's life, it's like a force multiplier in terms of the conviction it gives you to say, all right, I'm going to do that too.
Yeah. I could use a musical analogy because I mean, we have to think, okay, well, David acted without praying in this moment. And yet it doesn't mean that prayer is not important in our life. I mean,
Or that he wasn't prayerful.
Yeah, or wasn't prayerful. Yeah, I think that the way you think of it is like you are always meeting with the Lord. You're preparing your heart so that in those moments you will have the ability to, if the action is saying a word in a moment, you will have the word in your mind because you've been spending time in the word. You will have the word to say. If it's a matter of knowing what's right and wrong in the moment, you've been spending so much time in prayer and contemplation that it's not
Your
you don't
instinct is to do.
Yeah. So the musical analogy is it's just, if you have practiced and you have the ability under your fingers, you can play something without thinking about it. You know the right thing to play.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane
Yeah.
when he faces his greatest test. But it says that he went, I think in Luke's gospel, it says he went to pray as was his custom.
Yeah.
Right before that. And so he had fought this battle before in prayer. So he was ready for the greatest battle, which is really, that's his Goliath moment to me right there. And he was ready to fight it because he had, through perpetual practice, had prepared himself for it.
Yeah. Well, even before he went to ministry, I mean, that was the
Yeah, temptation in the wilderness, all of those things.
All the things. He already won the battle there.
Yep. It's good. Other thoughts on this passage?
Well, it just strikes me Saul reneged on the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. David had to do a lot more fighting to get a daughter. And
Exactly. All that stuff, So, and I don't know what happened with the taxes on his parents, but whether he got that.
No more
free.
property tax.
Yeah, no more property tax on you, buddy. But,
It's also, go ahead.
Well, you got to do things for the Lord.
Yeah.
Because people,
Yeah.
people are not going to reward.
Yeah,
you.
this is a thankless task.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It is.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. It's also interesting to me that David takes his head to Jerusalem. And I'm wondering, is that like a little forecasting of what's coming, right? That ultimately it ended up in Jerusalem and kind of as a trophy to David of God's faithfulness, you know? Yeah. So that's just an interesting little detail there. And that Saul has kind of no idea who David is, right? You just got to see his madness there.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't know who David's dad is, right? Which I think means something like, this guy does not come from an impressive lineage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This guy, the guy we'd think would fight the battle, and his pedigree, this guy didn't have. Who's his dad, right?
He should be coming from a royal lineage. Or
so much of your name and your identity was your family history, right? And to come from this obscure shepherding family in Bethlehem and be the eighth son, as a teenager who does this.
I wonder, though, as we've read through 1 Samuel, every time Israel is listed, it's all the tribes together and the tribe of Judah.
Yeah.
Judah is always held, they're always spoken of as separate.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if that's the royal tribe, because, that's even, Moses, when he prophesied about I think it was Moses.
Well, and Jacob in Genesis 48.
That's right.
Talks about Judah as well.
Yeah.
So,
So this is the royal tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of here's where we're going with this. This will be the royal tribe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you see how so much of Israel's salvation history unfolds within Judah.
Yeah.
Right? That this is kind of Jerusalem, Bethlehem, this whole region right around there. It's very localized to that region. And so it's not surprising then that the King David's greater son comes from right here.
Exactly.
So
that's good.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That's right. We're just doing one today.
Yeah. We'll have to play a little catch up in the podcast, but quality over quantity here at Creekside. That's what I always say. So thanks, listeners, and we'll try to catch up with where we are in 1 Samuel over the next few weeks, and we'll talk to you again soon.